for CX, how Agentic AI redefines the CX stack around context. So great session. Come on up. Give me a round of applause.
Hello, everyone. Obviously, I am not Arunabh. I'm Sarah. We've done a little bit of a change, and it's actually interesting because it goes along with what we're going to be talking about today, which is the rapid pace of change. So I'm going to start off. My name is Sarah Reuter. I am our General Manager of Collaboration for Cisco Canada. So that means I've got our entire practice across contact center, customer experience, calling, as well as our devices portfolio. Contact center is by far one of my favorite parts to talk about. And I'm going to start off with a little bit of a confession, and that is I'm not an engineer, I'm not in the dev world, but I am a AI technology enthusiast. And so actually about a year ago, I started trying to experiment with AI, this new lovely technology that came out, all around building my own personal EA for my life. So this wasn't for work. This wasn't for managing my Cisco clients. This was for managing all the hundreds of things that come at me as a mother of a little toddler, as well as a sales leader, and things that are just happening day in and day out. I tried to go in the Black Mirror kind of direction. I don't know if you guys have seen the episode where you put your brain into a device. Didn't get very far. In fact, I spent months working on trying to build this all out, and I learned a couple things. The first thing I learned is that this didn't feel like an assistant at all. It felt like I had taken tools I already use on a day-to-day basis and I just added AI in. And so I had to stop, and I stopped about 2 weeks ago, and this is part of why we've made a little bit of a change. And I had to stop and think, like, did I do this right? Did I build this on the foundation that is necessary to make this what I want it to be, the workflow I want it to be? And the answer was no, because I'd forgotten a few key things from a Substrate perspective. And so the instinct for all of us and for everyone in this room that's in a CX role is when agentic AI or these new cool technologies come up is to add them on and add them into the system that you're building across the platform. And what we want to actually be thinking is, are you building on the foundation that you want for the next decade? So when I talk about Substrate, I'm going to use the example of clicking this, not moving. This is not moving. Anyways, I'm going to talk about the example of the substrate around, if you think about in a biology terms, substrate is the foundation upon which people move, build, grow. So when I talk about that, we're looking at a pattern right now. Every 15 years or so, there's a new substrate that comes out in technology. So we think about this in the last 15 years, it's always been the smartphone, it's the iPhone. That's the substrate upon which everyone has been building these new apps, these new technologies. And the iPhone didn't come out here trying to challenge the taxi industry. That wasn't their intention. They wanted to give end users the ability to have GPS, real-time, on-time demand tracking. And so what Uber did that was really interesting is that they took that new substrate, that foundation, and they built something on top of it. They changed the way human mobility was perceived, used, and that's what came out of it. And today, what's happening is that the agentic AI shift is what's going to be the new technological substrate. So if we think about across different categories, so it's not just in retail and public sector, in hospitals, whatever it is, the iPhone, the smartphone changed the way that people consume services. And so these companies are just a few of the examples that came out and built around that. If you think about Spotify, for instance, they weren't out there to challenge music inventory. They weren't out there building songs. But they treated music as a software, and so that changed the way that consumers consumed. Stripe's the same thing. They weren't out there trying to become a bank. They treated banking and payments as a developing infrastructure. And so they changed the way that they were going about, and they've moved the categories. And so the most interesting organizations that I'm talking to right now are really thinking about this is, are we building on top of something that is actually going to make a difference based on how our end users are consuming it? And so if I look at this stat, I'm not a big stat person, so I think I've got 2 throughout this whole thing, but this one was interesting to me. And so Gartner said that 40% of enterprises by the end of 2020, by the end of this year, is going to be using AI-driven agents within their infrastructure. And what's interesting is they're saying that's up from less than 5% last year. And if anyone follows these trends, these analytics, it's not very often you get a within-year change on the prediction of where it's going. So what this means is that we are currently in a phase that is changing underneath us. If any of you use any of the AI agents out there, it's almost a daily basis where something you couldn't use the day before is now available. And so when I look at the new substrate, so this is the new foundation upon which technology, not just even in CX, but across the industry, across technological advances, this is where it's going to be based off of. And there's 3 shifts taking place, and they're all interesting on their own, but when they come together, this is what's forming that new foundation that we're building upon. And the first one, which is agentic AI, so that's something that predicts, that is able to actually act on your behalf. The second one, and this is my favorite, and this is actually where I ran into the biggest roadblocks when it came to my own application, was context. And this is the one that's going to be the most critical for the evolution of CX, or the evolution of customer experience, because your end users, our end users, are all expecting you to know who they are. And so from a context perspective, it's the ability to have a customer or a patient or a citizen's history, their talking styles. I know there's a question this morning around the different age generational technology uses, and the ability for AI to know that's what you want to do, that you prefer to talk to a human before you even need to tell them. This is where it's going. And then the final layer, which is the real-time orchestration, that layer is all about the voice, the messaging, the video, the automation. And the channels themselves actually aren't the product. It's the interaction. It's the actual interaction between your customer, your end user, and your agent that becomes the product. And like I said, any one of these is interesting, but altogether, that's the formation of that next substrate. This is the only other stat, so don't worry. So this is what I found interesting from Forrester's most recent 2026 CX index. And it was saying that organizations respond right now because they're responding quickly. Everyone's telling you, I'm sure you've got leaders, I've got leaders that are saying how many people on your team are using AI. That is not the right question, because I have people on my team using AI to bolt it on to their current foundation, and it's actually creating faster fragmentation. They don't know where to ask questions where. They don't know how to involve AI at different parts of the journey. And so faster fragmentation is not what anyone here wants. That's not what the last panel was talking about. We want to find a way for AI, agentic AI context and orchestration to be able to bring the experience together. And the risk is that all of us saying yes to adding agentic AI on as a bolt-on, it's without answering the foundation question first. And so this is kind of what bolt-on looks like. And if you remember the assistant I was talking about, I had created more tools, more integrations, more places where AI was being a part of my day-to-day workflow. In fact, I just spent about half an hour over the weekend trying to get rid of the multiple Sarah AI assistant folders I had on my desktop. This is what it looks like at an enterprise scale. And this is not a criticism. This is actually 15 years of enterprise-grade, real-time, best-in-class decisions that we've all had to make to be able to respond to that previous substrate, the smartphone, the iPhone, the on-demand usage. And if we're looking at this from a real kind of stitched together, you've got your CRM from one location, your WFM from another, your analytics from another, and then we layer the generative AI on top to be able to help, we've got AI. And the problem is it creates the customer's responsibility to be the integration layer of your portfolio. I was the integration layer of my assistant. I had to remember how to make it all work together. And that's not what your customer wants. They don't have to want to say one thing to a bot, repeat it to a human, repeat it again if they call in. They want you to know what they want, when they want, how they want it. That's what they're using right now with their own AI in their homes, and that's what they're going to go and start expecting. Every handoff becomes an amnesia event. And what happens with that is that the customer being the integration layer is where you lose them throughout the journey. And the whole goal is to keep them from the beginning to the end. And so if we look at this from a platform perspective, and I don't know if any of you know what Conway's law is, but essentially what that says is that every system that an organization will build essentially mirrors its own communication structure. So this was actually something that the panel just talked about, is we see these different org charts. We see you've got your IT that owns the data warehouse, you've got your digital that owns web and marketing that owns your platform journey. And the problem with this is that the layers that the customer actually sees, which is the agent-facing interface, and it's the ability for them to have the persistent context, that's not owned by any one department. So it's interesting to see between even this conference and the one that I went to a couple months ago, there's new titles popping up all over the place in different companies. Chief Experience Officer, Chief AI Officer, they're all over. And the reason is because of this, that these layers don't have a specific owner. And here's the part that I had to sit with when I was building my AI agent, is that it didn't mirror what I wanted it to be. It didn't mirror the journey that I wanted. It mirrored the tools I was using. So it mirrored the silos, essentially. I created my own org chart of one that was following Conway's law. And so what we've been building for the last 15 years, and what now is going to be shifting for the next 10, next 15, until the next substrate pops up, which who knows what that is. But we've been looking at this vertical stack. So every department has their own data source, their own purchasing department, their own analytics. Everything is kind of on their own record. Now, we've gotten much better at talking, but it does take, to the previous panel's point, it takes intentional human intervention to make sure that leader 1 is talking to leader 2 is talking to leader 3, and you all are going in the same journey. And what's interesting from a shift is that we're seeing this inverted. It's starting to get inverted, where these departments still exist, but they are almost consumers of this one base foundation of knowledge, of context, and orchestration that permeates across all of them. So all of that knowledge base is where they consume the technology. And I've spent the last few minutes on this platform, so I've kind of talked about what this looks like and what the problem is. And Arunabh is actually going to take you through what that looks like in practice. So from a Cisco standpoint, what we do for CX is we want to bring the silos together. We want to build this orchestration layer of which the departments are the customers. And so I'm going to pass it over to Arunabh, and he'll take you through that.
Thanks, Sarah. So what Sarah actually covered is that the foundation is shifting. Everything is becoming agentic. So when you talk about an agentic experience for a customer, let's take a quick look at a story. Here, Robert here is a mountain bike enthusiast. He loves his mountain bike, and he's looking for a new pair of handlebars. What Robert does, as everyone else does, is just go to the web, browse on your website, right? And he finds the handlebar that he wants, but then he's not sure, and he closes the browser and just walks away. Now, that's a customer signal. As we spoke about signals, and finding that right signal and taking action, making decisions. What we did is, based on Robert's profile and his customer profile, we know that he prefers Apple messaging for business. So we send him an event and a message on his Apple messaging for business app. We asked Robert whether he actually wants to do something about that item in his cart. Now, taking this one step further, Robert can just use natural language and actually message with us. And what we're doing here is we're taking this one step further and connecting Robert to an agentic system. This is different from a chatbot, and I'll explain how. Agentic systems have access to tools, have access to different interfaces, and they can make decisions without having to be programmed explicitly. And that's what agentic means. Agentic also means that you provide context to this AI agent so it can discover what has to be done, but also knows what exactly needs to be done. So here, this AI agent essentially knows that Robert needs information about the handlebar and whether it fits his bike. So it knows that we need a human in the loop right now. So this is a decision point for the AI agent to take a human in the loop. And what the agent does is it also realizes it has access to tools, like a calendar invite, books a callback for Robert. And finally, when we're actually connecting Robert to this human experience, which is our brand, the human agent has that context, this entire conversation right from our proactive event to this AI agent conversation, to the human agent, all of this is one seamless journey. Now, this is cool in practice, but what does it look like when you actually go down to solution this? So we've built a omni-channel and a multimodal orchestration platform that is agentic by design, and also hybrid. We understand that not all organizations are ready to just bolt on agentic AI. So what you can do with our Flow orchestration platform, and we have a demo booth there. After this session, you can check it out, is you can build rules based on events and non-channel events. So here, it's not a messaging channel, it's not a voice call. It's basically an event on your website that triggered an event into our orchestration platform with some customer context. After that, we can look up the customer context into a journey data service that we funnel data from different sources. So I had a gentleman here I was talking to who has 3 CRMs, a CDP platform, and then some bespoke platforms where customer data is all plugged in. That is where you need an abstraction layer to actually build all of this customer data and build a journey across all of these different platforms. And that's what Sarah was talking about, being abstracted to another level above. So you can have any number of apps, any number of platforms, any number of CDPs, CRMs. You will have a journey platform that makes sense of it all. Once you make sense of it all, we find out that Robert has various channel preferences. We can also have topics and customer profile from Robert. We figure out that Robert also has an identity, so we know his social ID and all of those things. But we also get AI-generated insights. So in the last session, we spoke about customer satisfaction surveys. No one fills up a survey. You can see that we have auto CSAT as a functionality. We can make sense of all of your customer interactions automatically using Agentic AI and feed that into the journey service. Now that we have context, we're able to take this one step further, send that proactive notification to Robert's Apple Messaging for Business using a subflow. And the moment Robert answers back, we're like, OK, let's take this to the next level. Let's connect Robert to an AI agent. Now, when we decide to connect Robert to an AI agent, there are various different ways that we could do it. We could script a deterministic flow saying that do this, do that. That's called a scripted AI agent. Or you could have everything autonomous, which is driven by LLMs, right? And this is the exact platform that plugs in deeply into our orchestration platform. What you're seeing here is our AI agent studio that allows you to build autonomous AI agents, scripted AI agents, and also expose different tools, interfaces, and backend systems for these AI agents to use. And if anyone quizzes you about what is Agentic from today's session, take over this. A goal and a bunch of steps and guardrails along with tools. That's what makes it Agentic. The AI agent figures out that you have a goal and you have access to certain actions and tools. And this could be any kind of tool. As you can see here, you could have an agent-to-agent consultation, meaning one AI agent specialized in one topic, reaching out to another AI agent. And in our example here, we're plugging in other systems, like a calendar system, to do a scheduled callback. In this case, it's just a calendar service that's exposed in an agentic way. You know MCP, I don't want to get into the technical jargon, but Model Context Protocol makes your API AI agent ready, or AI agent, or agentic, right? So you have MCP tools, you have integrations, you have A2A, and you also have your traditional REST APIs and your other integrations that you'd want to connect to this AI agent. The AI agent now essentially has all of these tools that it can discover, figure out what needs to be done next without having to be programmed. And that's the magic of the agentic AI layer. Now, all of this cannot be done bespoke. We have to think about security, we have to think about observability, and also think about every layer that you saw there, the knowledge integrations, the context that you saw from the conversation, which is the entire transcript, along with who the customer is, which is the customer journey. And what we've done is build a platform for this new agentic CX world, right? So what we believe is a 4-pillar strategy to make your CX agentic. It starts with an intelligent front door. So what you saw there was maybe a website, maybe you have your own front door where your customers reach out to your business. To make this intelligent front door, you would need to have an AI agent that integrates with all of your backend systems that makes it intelligent across any channel, multimodal context, etc. The second part of this is once you have the front door, you have to have the AI agent figure out what the customer's context and intent is. This is what we call context-driven orchestration. It's a difference in the past where we just wrote IVR rules, menu trees, etc. Here we are feeding real-time insights to the AI agent based on the conversation that's continuously happening. And you'll hear a lot of talk about AI memory, and we'll talk about that and how this journey data service evolves into memory for the AI agent, knowing what the customer wants. The third pillar of this strategy is you should have an extensive AI-native platform, which means that conversations that you cannot rate manually, you can't collect surveys for everything. You have AI QM, AI quality management, AI workforce management, and AI workforce engagement platforms that are built natively into the Webex CX platform. And lastly, and not most importantly, is the fact that security is not an afterthought. Observability is not an afterthought. And as we know, networking, collaboration, security, all of these things come together in your CX, and it's not going to be an afterthought. And this is what actually gives the one Cisco story to Webex CX, where we have one platform that powers it all. Observability through Splunk, security through Thousand Eyes, integrated deeply into Webex Contact Center and Webex Customer Experience Solutions. So this is what actually powers this one experience, one platform, and one Cisco. And the key thing is that none of this is just slideware. We have actual demos on each of these solutions and pillars and little building blocks. So Intelligent Front Door is powered by our communication platform as a service. We have so many channels, right? Any channel of your choice. Bring your own channel, along with voice and digital messaging. And AI agents and AI media is plugged into that front door. Context-driven orchestration, as you saw, our journey data service evolves into this agentic memory layer, constantly feeding information about the conversation to the AI agent so that it can answer queries better. And then, of course, we have your AI QM, AI-assisted WFM, and then automatic survey and CSAT scoring, et cetera. And I actually wanted to pass it on to Sarah to talk about how one of our key customers have got insights from this.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I said I didn't like stats. Technically, this is data versus stats, but I did want to leave you with one customer because this is all conceptual until we talk about what that actually looks like from a full platform rebuild versus bolting on. So, CarShield, which is one of the leading customers in America with the largest vehicle protection providing, and what they have been managing is around 55,000 customer contacts per week. And how they do that right now is with the implementation of one platform. It's across voice, digital, AI channels, what you name it. And so the numbers that I want to call out, the first is that 66% of their calls are now completely completed by your AI agent. So there's no human interaction whatsoever. That's 66%. 90% of their actual applications have now been sped up based on the AI processing that they put into play. And then 66% of their actual outreach has now been moved into a proactive form. So what Arunabh showed you there about reaching out and saying, hey, your basket has still got one thing in it. Would you like to purchase that? They've now shifted into that mode as well. But the most interesting one to me is the one where the 2/3 of it that are being completely contained within AI, the other third is reaching a human that already knows the story. And that's the goal here. The goal is that agentic AI is a part of the substrate mixed with the personal context, mixed with the real-time orchestration to provide one layer to your customer, one layer that provides them with a full-out journey. And this didn't happen because CarShield just added AI on to their original foundation. It happened because they stopped extending the old foundation and they built on the new one. And so that's where we want to close off before we go to any questions is a year ago when I started building out my own AI assistant, I did it the wrong way. I did not look at what the new foundation was. I did not base it on the new substrate. What I did was I added tools to fix tools that other tools had just fixed. And the problem was AI kept on outpacing me. So everything I'd built became insubstantial the next day. And the question that everybody in this room is being asked in the next 12 months, even less than that in some cases, 6 months, is what do you mean to do with your AI strategy? Do you mean to build on your current foundation, or do you mean to rebuild it on a foundation of the future? Are you building on an old substrate, or are you building on the new one? We'll be talking about this kind of in more detail in our roundtable tomorrow, because we are also, like all of you, learning about what this agentic new substrate can do and is capable of. Thank you so much for spending time with us. We will take some questions if you have any, and I appreciate it.